At 73, the morning can still feel wonderfully ordinary. You wake up, you place your feet on the floor, you walk toward the kitchen while the house is quiet. Perhaps you make tea or coffee. Maybe sunlight is beginning to reach through the curtains. You glance outside, think about the day ahead, and feel more or less like yourself. Nothing seems urgent, nothing hurts badly, nothing is demanding your attention. And yet, beneath that ordinary morning, your body is carrying out thousands of tasks you cannot see. Blood is moving through arteries that have served you for decades. Your bones are carrying your weight without making a sound. Millions of cells inside your digestive system are constantly renewing themselves. Your brain, eyes, inner ear, nerves, muscles, and blood vessels are coordinating every step you take across the room. And your lungs are quietly exchanging air, just as they have done millions of times before. This is one of the strange truths about health after 70. Some of the most important changes in your body may be the ones you cannot feel. That does not mean you should become frightened of every ache or every birthday. Quite the opposite. Healthy aging is not about living under constant medical surveillance. It is not about collecting tests simply because another year has passed. It is about knowing which silent risks deserve attention before they begin controlling your life. Because feeling fine and being free of every developing health problem are not always the same thing. High blood pressure can remain unnoticed. Weakening bones can remain painless until a fracture occurs. Some cancers can develop quietly. A growing fall risk may first appear as nothing more dramatic than reaching for the wall when you stand up at night. And a smoking history you stopped thinking about years ago may still influence which screening conversations are worth having. That is why these 5 health checks matter. Not because every person over 70 needs every possible test. Not because age itself is a disease. But because prevention becomes more personal as you grow older. Your medical history matters. Your previous screening matters. Your medications matter. Your mobility matters. Your smoking history matters. And your goals matter. By the end of this video, you will understand 5 health checks that people over 70 should not casually overlook. Some apply broadly, others apply only to certain people. And the 4th one may surprise you because there is no scan, no needle, and no laboratory result involved. Yet overlooking it can threaten one of the things older adults value most: independence. Before we begin, if you value practical information about staying strong, independent, and informed as you age, subscribe and join us. And as you listen, remember that screening recommendations can vary according to your country, medical history, previous results, and overall health. Use this video as a conversation guide for your own healthcare professional, not as a substitute for personal medical advice. Now look again at that quiet morning. There are several invisible systems working beneath it. The first is under pressure every second of every day. A blood pressure check is so familiar that it is easy to underestimate. You sit down, a cuff wraps around your upper arm. It tightens for a few seconds. Then 2 numbers appear. The entire process may be finished before you have even settled into the chair. But those numbers describe something happening throughout your body all day and all night. Every heartbeat pushes blood into your arteries. Those arteries are designed to carry that pressure. But as the years pass, blood vessels can become less elastic. Other health conditions may also influence blood pressure. When pressure remains too high over time, it can place additional strain on the heart and blood vessels and increase cardiovascular risk. And here is why this matters particularly after 70. Current CDC data show hypertension is extremely common in this age group. Among non-institutionalized U.S. adults age 70 and older, recent measurements found hypertension in about 72.6% of men and 76.6% of women. That means if you are over 70, high blood pressure is not some unusual condition affecting a small group of people. It is everywhere, yet many people expect high blood pressure to announce itself. They imagine headaches, a pounding heart, dizziness, a feeling that something must be wrong. But hypertension often produces no obvious warning symptoms. That is one reason regular measurement matters. The U.S. Preventive Services Task Force recommends screening adults for hypertension and suggests annual screening for adults age 40 and older, and others at increased risk. It also recommends confirming a new diagnosis with measurements outside the clinic before treatment is started. Think of your circulation as the plumbing inside a house. If the pressure inside the pipes stays slightly too high, you may not hear anything from the walls. The sink still works, the shower still runs, everything appears normal, but pressure is still pressure. And over enough time, what happens inside the system matters. Picture an illustrative example. Eleanor is 74. She is a retired accountant who still manages the family finances, walks most mornings, and insists on carrying her own groceries. During one appointment, her blood pressure is elevated. She laughs. "I was looking for parking for 20 minutes, she says. At another appointment, it is elevated again. This time she blames the coffee she drank that morning. Both explanations are possible. Some people really do have higher readings in medical offices, but Eleanor's clinician does not guess. Instead, she is asked to take properly performed blood pressure measurements at home and record them. A pattern begins to appear. The readings are not dramatically high every single time. That is precisely what surprises her. Some are better, some are worse. But together they tell a story one isolated measurement could not. And that is an important lesson. Your health is often revealed by patterns, not dramatic moments. If you already have diagnosed hypertension, the question is not simply, do I have high blood pressure? A better question is, how well controlled is my blood pressure across ordinary days? If you do not have diagnosed hypertension, ask, what have my recent readings been, and do I need measurements outside the clinic? If you monitor at home, technique matters. Sit quietly first. Support your back. Keep your feet on the floor. Position your arm comfortably so the cuff is around heart level. And use a monitor your healthcare professional considers appropriate. Most importantly, do not react emotionally to a single unusual reading. One number is a photograph. A pattern is a film. Your clinician is interested in the film. There is another reason this becomes important after 70. Sometimes the concern is not only pressure that is too high. Some older adults experience a significant drop in blood pressure after standing, which can contribute to lightheadedness and falls. Medications, hydration, illness, and other medical factors can influence this. So if you ever stand from a chair or bed and suddenly feel the room shift, tell your healthcare professional. Do not assume. That is just what being 75 feels like. And do not change your blood pressure medication on your own because of a home reading. Your treatment may need adjustment, or it may not. That decision belongs inside a medical conversation. The lesson from this first check is simple. The absence of symptoms does not make blood pressure irrelevant. Sometimes the quietest number in the room deserves the most attention. And if blood pressure shows us how something invisible can affect your cardiovascular system, the second check takes us somewhere even more hidden, down to individual cells. Inside your colon, cells are constantly renewing themselves. Old cells are replaced. New cells take their place. Most of the time, this happens exactly as it should. But sometimes abnormal growths called polyps develop. Many polyps never become cancer. Some types, however, can gradually change over time, and that creates an unusual opportunity. With appropriate colorectal cancer screening, certain precancerous growths may be found before they become cancer, while other screening methods can help detect cancer earlier. This is why colorectal screening is different from simply waiting to see whether you develop symptoms. Screening happens while you feel well. That distinction matters. Under current U.S. Preventive Services Task Force guidance, routine colorectal cancer screening is recommended through age 75 for average-risk adults. From ages 76 through 85, the decision becomes selective and should take into account previous screening, overall health, and individual circumstances. The task force recommends discontinuing routine screening after age 85. The American Cancer Society similarly advises that average-risk adults ages 76 to 85 discuss whether continued screening makes sense based on factors such as health, life expectancy, preferences, and prior screening history. This means the words after 70 cannot be treated as one giant category. A healthy 71-year-old who has never completed recommended screening is not in the same situation as an 84-year-old with serious medical problems who has been screened appropriately for decades. Age matters. But history matters too. Imagine walking into a doctor's office with two folders. One folder says, I am 74. The other contains your previous colonoscopy dates, stool test results, family history, medical conditions, medications, and overall health. Which folder tells the fuller story? The second one. That is why one of the most useful things you can do is know your screening history. Not vaguely. Not, I think I had something done years ago. Try to know what test you had and approximately when. Was it a colonoscopy? Was it a stool-based screening test? Was anything abnormal found? Were polyps removed? Were you told to repeat testing sooner than usual? Those details can change what happens next. Now picture Samuel, 72. He has no abdominal pain. His appetite is normal. His weight has barely changed. He assumes colorectal screening is mainly for people having bowel trouble. But that is where the logic becomes backward. Screening is designed for people who do not have warning symptoms. Once symptoms appear, you are no longer simply talking about routine screening. You may be talking about diagnostic evaluation. So if you experience things such as blood in the stool, a persistent unexplained change in bowel habits, unexplained weight loss, ongoing significant abdominal symptoms, or possible anemia, do not simply wait for your next scheduled screening date. Tell your healthcare professional. The point is not to become suspicious of every digestive change. Bowel habits can change for many harmless reasons. The point is to recognize the difference between prevention and symptom evaluation. And there is another misconception worth correcting. Colorectal screening does not automatically mean colonoscopy for everyone. Depending on your risk, age, health system, and medical history, there are several recognized screening approaches, including certain stool-based tests and direct visualization procedures, such as colonoscopy. The appropriate test and interval depend on the method and the individual. So instead of asking only, "Do I need a colonoscopy?" ask a broader question. Based on my age, previous screening, and health, should I still be screened for colorectal cancer, and which option makes sense for me? That question becomes especially valuable after 75, because good preventive medicine is not simply about doing more. Sometimes wisdom means testing. Sometimes wisdom means stopping testing. The goal is not maximum medical activity. The goal is maximum meaningful benefit. And this idea becomes even clearer with our third check. Because the next system can weaken gradually for years without making a sound. Stand for a moment if you safely can. Feel your feet against the floor. Your legs are carrying you. Your spine is holding you upright. Your hips are transferring force through your body. None of this feels extraordinary, but beneath your skin is a living framework that has supported you through almost every step of your life. Your bones. People often imagine bone as something solid and permanent, almost like stone. But bone is living tissue. Throughout life, old bone is broken down and new bone is formed. As people grow older, that balance can shift. Bone may gradually become less dense and more fragile. And here is what makes this process dangerous. You usually cannot feel bone density disappearing. There is no alarm that says, "Your hip is 12% weaker this morning." You cannot look into the mirror and see osteoporosis. Often the first unmistakable sign is a fracture. That is why screening matters. In its January 2025 recommendation, the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force recommends osteoporosis screening for women age 65 and older to help prevent osteoporotic fractures. For men, the task force currently says the evidence is insufficient to determine the overall balance of benefits and harms of routine population screening. So individual risk and professional guidance become especially important. For many women over 70, therefore, bone density screening is already firmly within the age range where it should have been considered. A commonly used test is a DXA or DEXA scan. It measures bone mineral density. You can think of it as looking at the hidden framework of the house rather than judging the building only from the paint on the walls. Now consider why this matters beyond the bone itself. Suppose you fracture a wrist. That is painful and disruptive. But suppose the fracture is in the hip. Now walking may be interrupted. Hospital care may be required. Rehabilitation may follow. Days of less movement can become weeks. Muscles can weaken. Confidence can fall. A person who once walked outside without thinking may begin studying every curb. A staircase that once seemed ordinary may suddenly look like an obstacle. That is why bone health and independence are so closely connected. The goal is not simply to obtain a better number on a scan. The goal is to preserve the structure that lets you move through your world. Picture another illustrative example. Helen is 76. She has never broken a bone. Because of that, she assumes osteoporosis is something other women have. She still cooks. She still drives. She still walks to her neighbor's house. At a routine medical visit, her clinician asks whether she has ever had bone density screening. Helen cannot remember. That single question changes the conversation, not because anyone knows she has osteoporosis. They do not. The purpose of screening is precisely to look before certainty exists. Her clinician reviews her age, health conditions, medications, fracture history, and other risk factors, and decides what evaluation is appropriate. Notice what did not happen. Helen did not wait for a fall to prove whether her bones were strong enough. That is prevention. If you are a woman over 70 and cannot remember whether you have had appropriate osteoporosis screening, ask about it. If you are a man, do not conclude that bone health is irrelevant. Men can develop osteoporosis and fractures too. The question is simply less straightforward from a routine population screening standpoint under USPSTF guidance, so individual risk assessment matters. Ask your clinician whether factors in your history make bone density testing appropriate. Those factors may include previous fractures, certain medications, low body weight, smoking history, and particular medical conditions, among others. And pay attention to changes your doctor may want to know about. Have you lost noticeable height? Has your posture changed? Have you developed unexplained back pain? None of these proves osteoporosis, but they can be worth discussing. Then there is the temptation to solve bone health with a bottle. Calcium, vitamin D, another supplement advertised for stronger bones. But the body is not a machine where adding more raw material automatically creates a stronger structure. Nutrition matters. Physical activity matters, hormones matter, medications matter, medical conditions matter, fall risk matters, and supplement needs differ between people. Do not assume that taking large doses of something must be safer simply because it is sold without a prescription. Talk with your healthcare professional about what you actually need, because a strong skeleton is only half of the equation. You can have relatively strong bones and still suffer a serious injury if another system fails. And unlike bone density, the next check is not performed by a scanner. It begins with a question. Have you fallen? Imagine standing from your bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. The room is dark. Your eyes are adjusting. Your blood pressure is changing as you stand. Your inner ear is sensing movement. Your brain is calculating where your body is in space. Your leg muscles are generating force. Your feet are reading the floor. Your nervous system is making dozens of tiny corrections before you take the first step. Balance feels like one simple ability. Biologically, it is a team performance, and after 70, small changes in several members of that team can add together. A little muscle weakness, a medication that causes drowsiness, poor vision, a sudden drop in blood pressure when standing, a loose rug, a hurried trip to the bathroom. None may seem dangerous alone. Together they can create the moment when balance disappears. This is why fall risk assessment deserves to be thought of as a genuine health check. The CDC says falls are the leading cause of injury among adults age 65 and older, and more than 14 million older adults, about 1 in 4, report falling each year. And here is another revealing fact. Many older adults never tell their doctor about a fall, especially when they were not seriously hurt. CDC information notes that less than half of older people who fall report it to their doctor. Why? Sometimes embarrassment, sometimes pride, sometimes the person thinks, I tripped over something. It does not count, but medically, it may count very much. Because a fall gives information, so does a near fall, so does grabbing furniture more often, so does feeling dizzy when you stand, so does avoiding the stairs because you no longer trust your legs, so does stopping your evening walks because you are afraid of losing your balance. These are not admissions of weakness, they are clues. The National Institute on Aging notes that falls may be influenced by factors including medications, balance problems, vision, and the home environment, and many falls can be prevented. Medications deserve special attention. Older adults are often taking several medicines at the same time. Some medications may contribute to drowsiness, slower reaction time, changes in balance or vision, or blood pressure changes that increase fall risk. CDC's STD resources specifically include medication review as part of fall prevention care. Now picture Arthur, 78. He takes medication for blood pressure, another for pain, something occasionally for sleep. He also takes several supplements he buys himself. Each prescription came from a reasonable place, but nobody has looked at the complete list recently. Arthur has begun feeling slightly unsteady when he gets out of bed. Not every night, just often enough that he automatically reaches toward the dresser. Then one morning, his daughter notices him doing it. How long have you been holding on to things like that? Arthur shrugs. Everybody gets a little wobbly at my age. That sentence is exactly the assumption worth challenging. Balance problems may become more common with age. That does not mean they should automatically be ignored. Arthur brings every medication and supplement to an appointment. His healthcare team reviews what he is taking, when he takes it, whether each medicine is still needed, and whether any combination could be contributing to dizziness or fall risk. The goal is not to throw medications away, and please never stop a prescription medicine simply because you suspect it causes dizziness. The goal is review. Medication needs change. Bodies change. Kidney function can change. Other illnesses appear. New prescriptions get added. What made sense 5 years ago deserves another look today. Then there is movement. One of the most dangerous reactions to a fall or even fear of falling is to stop moving. It sounds sensible. If walking is risky, I will walk less. But less movement can weaken muscles and reduce balance ability, potentially making confidence and stability worse. Current USPSTF guidance recommends exercise interventions for community-dwelling adults age 65 and older who are at increased risk of falling. It also says decisions about broader multifactorial fall prevention interventions should be individualized. That exercise does not mean you need a gym membership and heavy weights. For one person, it may mean supervised strength work. For another, physical therapy. For another, carefully chosen balance exercises. The correct program depends on your abilities and medical situation. And the environment matters too. Lighting, footwear, loose rugs, stairs, bathroom surfaces, objects in walking paths. The ordinary architecture of your home becomes part of your health system. So here is the check. Ask yourself, have I fallen in the past year? Have I nearly fallen? Do I feel unsteady? Do I use furniture for support? Do I get dizzy when standing? Am I more afraid of walking than I used to be? Then tell your clinician the answers and take an updated list of everything you use: prescriptions, over-the-counter drugs, sleep aids, pain relievers, and supplements. Ask, could anything I take be increasing my fall risk? That conversation may feel less important than a scan. It is not. Your ability to walk from the bedroom to the kitchen, step outside into the morning air, visit family, shop for yourself, and move through your own home safely is one of the foundations of independence. If you are still with me, write 4 in the comments. And think about one question while you do. When was the last time somebody asked you about a fall before you brought it up yourself? Because our final check returns to a disease that can also remain quiet for a long time. But this time, whether you need screening depends heavily on a chapter of your life that may have ended years ago. There are choices people leave behind: jobs, homes, relationships, habits. For some older adults, smoking belongs to that list. Maybe you stopped 5 years ago, maybe 10. Maybe much longer. You may barely identify yourself as someone who used to smoke, but when your clinician considers lung cancer screening, your smoking history still matters. Lung cancer screening is not intended for every person over 70. This is important. A scan is not automatically beneficial simply because you are older. Screening works best when it is offered to people whose risk is high enough for the expected benefit to outweigh the possible harms. Current U.S. Preventive Services Task Force guidance recommends annual low-dose CT lung cancer screening for adults ages 50 to 80 with at least a 20-pack year smoking history who currently smoke or quit within the past 15 years. But there is an important current difference between major guidelines. The American Cancer Society recommends yearly low-dose CT for people ages 50 to 80 who currently smoke or formerly smoked and have at least a 20-pack year history. Its current recommendation does not use the same 15 years since quitting cutoff. Why does that difference matter to you? Because it shows exactly why screening after 70 should be a conversation rather than a checklist copied from the internet. Different organizations and health systems may use different criteria. Insurance or national health system coverage may follow particular guidelines, and your health may influence whether you could benefit from screening and treatment. So do not try to decide eligibility from memory. Bring your history. A pack year is simply a way of estimating cumulative smoking exposure. 1 pack per day for 20 years equals 20 pack years. 2 packs per day for 10 years also equals 20 pack years. Half a pack per day for 40 years would also equal 20 pack years. If you do not know your exact total, give your clinician the best history you can. How old were you when you began? Roughly how much did you smoke? Were there periods when you stopped? When did you quit? Those details matter more than saying only, "I used to smoke." The screening test used for eligible people is low-dose computed tomography, or low-dose CT. It takes detailed images of the lungs using a lower radiation dose than a standard diagnostic chest CT. It is not the same as simply obtaining a routine chest X-ray. Under USPSTF guidance, annual LDCT is the recommended screening method for the eligible high-risk population. Now picture Frank. He is 73 and retired from driving delivery trucks. He smoked for decades but quit several years ago. At appointments, when doctors ask whether he smokes, he proudly says, "No, that is true, but it is incomplete." Eventually, a clinician asks the second question, "Did you ever smoke?" Then the third, "About how much? And for how many years?" Suddenly the old history becomes relevant again, not as a judgment, as information. Frank is surprised. He thought quitting meant the past could simply be deleted from the medical record. Quitting was still one of the best things he could have done for his health. But past exposure can continue to influence risk, and this is where many people make another mistake. They believe screening is useful only when symptoms appear. But once you have persistent concerning symptoms, such as a new or worsening cough, coughing up blood, unexplained weight loss, ongoing chest symptoms, or unexplained shortness of breath, you need medical evaluation. That is no longer simply the same question as routine screening. Again, screening looks for disease in people who do not have symptoms suggesting the disease. Diagnosis investigates a problem that may already be presenting itself. There are also downsides to lung screening. CT scans can find nodules. Many nodules are not cancer. A finding may lead to repeat imaging, sometimes additional testing, sometimes anxiety. There is also radiation exposure. That does not mean screening is bad. It means screening should be directed toward people most likely to benefit. Think of a flashlight. A flashlight is useful when you point it somewhere there is a reason to look. Shining it endlessly into every corner is not automatically better. That is why your final question for the doctor is not, "Can I have a lung scan because I am over 70? It is, based on my age, smoking history, current health, and the guidelines used here, should I be having annual low-dose CT lung cancer screening?" That is a much better question. And if you still smoke, please do not avoid the conversation because you expect judgment. Your healthcare professional needs accurate information, not a perfect history. Screening does not replace quitting, and quitting does not erase the importance of discussing screening when you meet eligibility criteria. Your past is not being used against you. It is being used to care for you more intelligently. Now return to the morning where we began, the quiet room, the sunlight, your first few steps of the day. You feel fine, and now you understand something deeper about what fine means. Blood pressure checks look at the invisible force moving through your circulation. Colorectal screening looks for cellular changes that may develop before obvious symptoms. Bone density screening examines the hidden architecture holding you upright. Fall risk and medication review examine the entire system that allows you to move safely through the world. And for eligible people, lung cancer screening looks at risk that can remain connected to smoking exposure long after the last cigarette. 5 checks. 5 different parts of the body, but one shared principle. Do not wait for every important health problem to become loud. Medicine is often most useful when it hears the whisper. That does not mean every whisper is disease. It does not mean every person needs every test. And it certainly does not mean that turning 70 should fill your calendar with procedures. In fact, the opposite lesson may be more important. After 70, healthcare should become more individualized. A 71-year-old who walks several miles, has few medical conditions, and has never completed certain recommended screenings may have very different preventive needs from an 87-year-old living with several serious illnesses. The right question is not, what tests do 70-year-olds get? The better question is, which preventive decisions have a meaningful chance of helping me given the life and health I have today? That is a powerful question, because aging does not remove your voice from medicine. It makes your voice more important. Your preferences matter. Your goals matter. Your tolerance for procedures matters. Your previous results matter. What you would choose to do if a test finds something matters. This is especially important with cancer screening. A screening test is not useful simply because it can detect something. You and your clinician should consider whether finding that problem would lead to treatment that is appropriate and beneficial for you. That is the difference between thoughtful preventive care and simply collecting tests. So before your next appointment, take a piece of paper. Write 5 words: pressure, bones, falls, lungs. Then beside each one write a question. For pressure, what have my usual readings been? For am I up to date or should screening now be individualized? For bones, have I had the bone health assessment appropriate for me? For falls, could my balance, medications, blood pressure, vision, or strength be increasing my risk? For lungs, does my smoking history make lung cancer screening appropriate under the guidelines used here? You may discover that 3 of these are already completely taken care of. Excellent. You may discover that 1 does not apply to you. Also excellent. You may discover that something has been overlooked. That is exactly why you asked. Preventive healthcare is not a contest to see who can complete the most tests. It is the quiet work of protecting options. The option to keep walking. The option to remain in your own home. The option to travel. The option to spend an afternoon with grandchildren without your health dominating every conversation. The option to open the curtains tomorrow morning and think about the day ahead rather than the illness that could perhaps have been found sooner. Nothing in medicine guarantees that future. No screening test can promise you another decade. No doctor can remove every risk. No healthy habit makes you invincible. But uncertainty is not a reason to become passive. It is a reason to become informed. And if you have reached 70, 75, 80, or beyond without paying much attention to preventive care, do not waste energy regretting what you did not do 10 years ago. Begin where you are. There is dignity in that. There is strength in that. There is hope in that. Ask the next question. Schedule the next appropriate conversation. Tell your doctor about the symptom you have been minimizing. Bring your medication list. Find your old screening records. Mention the fall you never thought counted. Tell the truth about your smoking history. And allow your healthcare decisions to be based on the person you are today, not the person you were at 50, not the person your neighbor is at 75. You. Because healthy aging is not merely about extending life as far as possible. It is about protecting the life inside those years. A stronger body, a clearer mind, safer movement, greater confidence, more independence, more mornings when you can make your own breakfast, more afternoons when you can walk through your own front door, more conversations with people whose voices you love, more ordinary days. And ordinary days, after enough years have passed, reveal themselves to be anything but ordinary. So here is my final question. Which of these 5 health checks do you need to ask about first? Write check in the comments if you are going to review your preventive health rather than simply waiting for symptoms. And if you know someone over 70 who always says, "I feel fine, so I must be fine," share this video with them, not to frighten them, to remind them that prevention is not fear. Prevention is preparation. If this helped you, like the video, subscribe, and join us for more practical conversations about staying healthier, stronger, and more independent after 60, 70, and beyond. Take good care of yourself. Keep asking good questions. Keep moving when you safely can. Keep protecting the independence you have worked a lifetime to build. And remember, growing older does not mean expecting your body to fail. It means understanding it more carefully. I wish you a healthier, stronger future and many more meaningful mornings ahead.